It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Pius V. Thomas. Dr. Thomas is currently serving as an associate professor and head of the Department of Philosophy at Assam University, Silchar. His teaching portfolio covers contemporary Western philosophy, critical hermeneutics, ethics with a special focus on applied ethics and environmental ethics, philosophy of religion, the philosophical insights of Rabindranath Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi. Also, human rights, exploring its context and theories of democracy in relation to religion. Philosophy of education, critical religiosity, examining Christianity and Buddhism. Dr. Thomas has contributed to 40 research papers. His impactful work is also reflected in several volumes, both edited and authored. Authored volumes are Reflections, Collected Papers, Journey on the Margin, and edited volumes are Knowledge, Theorization and Rights, Renegotiating the Connectives, Cosmopolitan Thought and the Displaced, Human Rights Perspective, and his forthcoming works are on Gandhi, the contemporaneous of Gandhi, and the patterns of intersubjectivity. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I also would like to welcome Dr. Koshi Tharkan, Dean of School of Sanskrit Philosophy and Indic Studies, along with the faculty members and students attending the lecture. Over to you, Bhavna.
Yes, sir. We can now begin our lecture.
So, respected Dean of the school, Professor Koshi Taragan, and other faculty members, and I'm really thankful to Diksha for inviting me, and Saga who has welcomed me and introduced me. The title has been already mentioned by Diksha. So let me start with a kind of remembering of Habermas. Jürgen Habermas, Charles Taylor, and Noam Chomsky, three great thinkers of our time. Of course, there are so many other people. From the deconstructive tradition, we have Derrida, Michel Foucault, Baudrillard, and Lyotard. So many feminist thinkers like Judith Butler, all of them. Many of them are alive. Derrida, Foucault, Baudrillard, all these people have gone. But these three old people are still alive. It's a very interesting aspect. All of them are above 95. Habermas is 96, Noam Chomsky is 95, and Charles Taylor, of course, I think he's also 95, 96. And I try to, since we belong to different traditions and different generations, I would like to find a connection in this. If I'm wrong, please correct me. All these people are public intellectuals. And Romila Thapar has given a very interesting definition for public intellectual. She says, public intellectuals are nurtured and inspired by heterogeneity of worldviews, deliberative democratic choices of civil societies, and promotes public sphere, public talk, public involvement, public engagements. And I think there is a connection with what I am mildly, briefly trying to tell you or discuss with you. That is the emancipatory intent of knowledge. Only if there is public sphere, only if there is public intellectuals, only if we are all becoming public intellectuals. I have a paper, a humble paper, calling teachers as public intellectuals. Teachers, of course, are public intellectuals because we have convergent and divergent thinking in a very broad way. Both are there in teachers. So, if public intellectuals and public spheres are coming to a beautiful kind of combination, then knowledge should be necessarily liberative and emancipatory. Or for public intellectuals or public sphere to come into a kind of a fruitful, meaningful existence and having its own meaningful horizon, we need to have emancipatory knowledge. Knowledge which can make us improve upon ourselves. Knowledge which can really release or relieve us from slavish institutions and broader concepts of freedom we have to search for from that point of view. So I think this connection is important. And these three people, in a big way, they have made their interventions in public sphere, religion, critique of religion, democracy, political institutions, social institutions, education, etc., etc. So Habermas is still looked at as a critical theorist, as the one has responded to socio-political and ethical demand of working out the normative frameworks essential for the post-traditional living. A very important contribution of Habermas, along with Charles Taylor and many others, many others. You can bring in hundreds of names from abroad as well as from India. Coexistence is a very important factor. How to coexist, how to live together, because we are thousands of cultures. We are millions of different moral standards. How to have an ethical platform. And I think, I'll try to connect it more powerfully later, more seriously, the whole of the critical theory, which is a challenge to all kinds of metaphysical systems. And they are, by virtue of that, post-metaphysical and ethical. So critical theories will actually look at the ethical needs of coexistence as well as human history and human suffering, nothing else. Religions and many other dogmatic philosophies, they will look at metaphysical kind of principles, ultimate principles. Ultimate principles will be all the time controlling. But in critical theory, particularly a Habermasian variety, there is post-metaphysical dimension, which is procedural, which is all the time looking for something which is emancipatory, freedom intent. Okay, so as Habermas reminds us, perhaps as a student, one of the very important statements which made me come to Habermas, though in a very minimal way, is this. Habermas statements, I quote, "What shapes our democracy is that instructs us on how best to behave in situations where it is in our power to counteract the extreme vulnerability of others by being thoughtful and considerate." Perhaps this is the most important statement of democracy. If you look at our constitution, it is there in a big way. The whole of post-traditional religiosity, see, post-secular and post-religious religiosity, post-traditional Buddhism, post-traditional Christianity, post-traditional Hinduism. If you look at all these major developments, what we see is this wonderful insight, that is to protect the vulnerable at any cost. That is our job. And how to protect the vulnerable? Through democracy. Without democracy, we cannot protect the vulnerable. And democracy, what kind of democracy? It should be deliberative democracy. Of course, there are a lot of debates going on. Some people say that Habermasian democracy is very old, Is deliberative democracy is not deliberate at all. And people like later postmodern thinkers, they say that dialogical democracy is more important, but still the spirit is this: to protect the vulnerable. As an engaging interlocutor, Habermas makes the claim to renew and refresh the socio-political life more democratically emancipatory through the reconstruction of the intersubjective and dialogical source of human engagements. When we think about intersubjective, Professor Koshi is a very big scholar of phenomenology and Husserl. This word is a heavy word, intersubjectivity. People would think that, my God, what is there in intersubjectivity? And in connection with intersubjectivity, along with other people, I also made a lot of words. Interconceptual, intercultural. But what is intersubjective? Intersubjective means basically shared world, nothing else. We need to have a common shared world. We cannot have restricted, exclusive worlds, but shared world of suffering, shared world of dreams, shared world of coexistence, shared world of living together. That's it. So it should be democratically emancipatory. It should be continuously making us more and more into better human beings. It should not dehumanize us. It should be a kind of vertical and horizontal movement towards the other. So I have listed, the interventions of Habermas. Habermas' creative intervention in the issues like German reunification. Some of you are very young, perhaps you wouldn't know. Professor Koshi Taragan and all know what was this German reunification after the fall of Soviet Union. It was a big issue, and Habermas was there very powerfully by proposing a common constitution for Europe, and he has got his own theory for that. EU, European Union. And after the September 11th attack, many of you will be remembering what happened. There was a miserable kind of discourse created fear psychosis about violence, killing, excluding, ostracization, xenophobia, everywhere in every society. So Habermas and Derrida, they made a wonderful debate. They were actually talking about how to overcome this in a humanitarian, in a democratic, meaningful way. The need to overcome anti-dialogical, regressive, fundamentalist, and anti-rational orientations. This is what Habermas was talking about, because there are differences of opinion, of course. This anti-rational, anti-dialogical, people like Derrida wouldn't agree with all that fully, or agree with Habermas fully. But still, very interestingly, Michael, maybe 3 years back, there was a write-up by him. The title of the write-up was "Why Habermas Disappeared." It's true. As a person who worked on Habermas simply disappeared. Though he is actively there. People say that. I know a professor there, he was telling he's still active, intellectually very vibrant. But his theories slightly disappeared. And he is listing them out. The German philosopher was one of the 20th century's most influential public intellectual. But 21st century has cut him adrift. Since the 1960s, his scholarship has set research agendas in philosophy, sociology, and history, while his newspaper articles and interviews have steered public debates on topics from the memory of the Holocaust, the Nazi period, and to the Iraq War, particularly human rights, international human rights. Habermas was very powerful, his interventions. He may also be the foremost intellectual of Europe, advocating for the continent's economic and political integration, political developments against which he has struggled for decades. If you are interested, I'm not an expert in that. You can see what is happening in international politics now after the coming of Trump. Trump was trying to destroy European Union. These are all not Trump's devilish activity. This is international, global kind of what you call capitalism. That word is doubtful, which I'm not using it, but capitalism, kind of liberal capitalism. It has got its own cancerous growths. So these are happening because of that. But Habermas predicted it long time back. Still eminent in the academy, but increasingly marginal outside it. That's what he is telling. Still, people do research. Germany and all, even if you say Habermas, people would be very happy. But outside, many people don't discuss it. That's what Michael Hirsch was telling. So, there was a book recently. I think 2-3 Indian authors also were there. Deprovincializing Habermas. Because in Habermas, there is a Eurocentric element. That is true. Habermas was noble enough to admit that. He said, I do not know anything about India. I wrote to him as a research scholar. I did my PhD on Habermas, 1998, 99, that time. So they, Madras University, they said, you have to get a permission from Habermas. So I wrote to Habermas, very difficult to get him. Through so many people, I managed to send a fax to him. No emails and all those days. It was not very popular. I sent a fax, and after some time he replied to me. And one sentence was this: I do not know anything about India. My theories are all based on Europe and my experience. True, he's noble enough. Second, he wished to me, I said, I'm that time Madras University, Professor Koshi, it was Center for Advanced Studies, S. Radhakrishnan, Center for Advanced Studies. And at the end, he replied to me saying that, give my good wishes to S. Radhakrishnan. S. Radhakrishnan died 30 years back. He doesn't know. And see, the European intellectuals, as one of the Malayali writers said, they don't take seriously our big thinkers. S. Radhakrishnan was hoping he would get Nobel Prize. And a great thinker, after 26 years, is wishing him. He is dead and gone. So that kind of a Eurocentricity is there in Habermas. But he is humble enough to tell that. Another author, Nick Crossley, who wrote about intersubjectivity, I wrote to him. I asked my humble doubts as a research scholar. He said, I do not know anything. In India, I do not know. So they all wash their hands. So that is there. So I think the criticism against Habermas, in some of my writings, publications and all, I have listed them out. It's a long list. But I am mentioning because postmodern thinkers, deconstructivists, theologians, social theorists, so many of them criticized Habermas, left and right. And Habermas retorted. Habermas replied to all of them. There are important books. If you're interested, I can send that bibliography. To all of them, Habermas very powerfully replied. And some of these, he came out with large books. Still, I am reading. Justification and application, between facts and norms, very difficult. But Professor Koshi and all are very diligent student. He would sit and read Husserl word by word. I am not that sincere. Of course, I read Habermas, I like. I am telling it's very tough, difficult to read these people. So the criticism against Habermas' critical theory can primarily be divided into three. They are philosophical, social theoretical, and theological. So Mendelssohn is telling the whole idea of his knowledge, which is coming through his concept of intersubjectivity or shared world, cannot be easily attained. There's a lot of theory, I'm not using all that. Because you cannot force this on people. You should enter into a discourse. How can you tell people? People are not capable of doing that. And the violence of reason, the violence of metaphysics, though Habermas is very powerfully telling that I'm post-metaphysical, there is a metaphysical remnant, a metaphysical kind of leftover in Habermas, which is very, very powerfully there. Someone has responded. Yes. So the tension between discourse and intersubjectivity as mutually determining meta-principle drains off the power to explain the principle of universalization. According to Habermas, in every statement, there is a truth claim. Truth claims are naturally universal. Yes. So critiquing the discourse ethical implication in the principle of democracy as deliberative democracy. Anthony Giddens, another great thinker, he also said it cannot be achieved. It is impossible because what we see is some kind of institutional adjustments, not the real dialogical democracy. And the postmodern criticism, as we know, the ideal of unifying reason in Habermas's concept of linguistic intersubjectivity, there is an idealizing reason which is violence, and some people used to call Habermas the last theorist, and Habermas actually is an anal compulsive, to use a bad word. Habermas still preserve an universalist and quasi-evolutionist scheme which Habermas proposes, which is insensitive to the local, the contextual, and the concrete socio-historical sites. So the political implication of such inadequacies of the discourse ethics of theory and its exclusionary implication and the forced metaphysical unity it ultimately assumes over difference will destabilize the deliberative model of democracy. So these are the, in nutshell and briefly, the three: political, social theoretical, philosophical, and theological, or any kind of criticism, because there is no essential dialogue, there is no essential democracy, there is no essential emancipatory intent in Habermas. Habermas's philosophy intent is there, no implication. Habermas's philosophy is inspired chiefly by the ability of his critical theory to present. This is what I would say. Some good friend of mine is continuously posting some books and all. I have a bibliography, I can send it to you, all these people I know. And see, the problem is Habermas as a theoretical ascendancy, starting from German school of the disputes in German school of sociology, where he is making debates with his Frankfurt School theorist, Horkheimer, and others, great thinkers. And he is the junior, he's the second generation. Then towards the rational society, theory and practice, and I have the whole list. 38 books are the major books, and all these are dealing with knowledge and human interest, theory of communicative action, 2 volumes, post-metaphysical thinking, like that. It is systematically building up. He's a system building up rational thinker. So we know all that. And Thomas McCarthy, translations, all these are there. So Habermas's defense is peculiar. That's what I am. First of all, I said the charges against Habermas will come back to the true spirit of the emancipatory intent in Habermas. That's what I thought. Instead of arguing for Habermas and coming to the criticism, I came with the criticism. Then we'll go to Habermas slowly. Habermas's philosophy is inspired chiefly by the ability of his critical theory to present an ethical counterclaim. That's what I told you in the beginning. Critical theory is talking about an ethical, post-metaphysical, historical, and particularly claims for coexistence, which is looking at seriously the human suffering. And Habermas would say that when we talk about deprovincialize, de-Eurocentricize, Habermas would say that, I do not know, I wanted to make an interview with him very badly, but I couldn't get money, I couldn't go. So Habermas would say that, Habermas said in an interview, someone asked, you sum up your theory, your philosophical endeavor. He said it's democracy. So one region and its problems and its principles of democracy, its principles of coexistence can easily make dialogue with other places. So that's what Habermas would say about human rights, about any kind of democratic interventions and engagements. If a particular region and its history, its suffering, its struggle is recorded and looked at seriously, deeply, hermeneutically, then it can be compared with other regions. So I don't think this deprovincialization, will actually exhaust Habermas completely. Still, there are some emancipatory intents. So when the postmodern objections against the intersubjective social philosophy argue that the dynamics of Habermas's critical theory is Westocentric, the intersubjective discourse philosophy and the ethics of Habermas find out a universalizable critical core. That's what I said. In congruence with the critically optimizable enlightenment values in every culture. This is being challenged in a big way. Western enlightenment is different, Indian enlightenment is different. But I think there is an intercultural engagement or space for engagement between all these different cultures as an ethical understanding, ethical opening beyond metaphysical strictures. No, metaphysics will give you strictures. Don't do this. Only up to this point. No. And we have to break through kind of what you call a constructive hermeneutics. The problem with Derrida and other people, of course, they are also talking about deconstructive hermeneutics. But in deconstructive hermeneutics, there is a closure. But in Habermas, though there is a kind of rational closure, it is giving the possibility of constructive hermeneutics. So Habermas calls the whole of his project rational reconstruction, the possibility of reconstruction. Though there are many recent counterclaims against the theoretical positions of Habermas, we cannot but explore into the question of how reconstruction of Enlightenment values of modernity, simultaneously presupposing a critical space for all culture. So I would call, instead of modernity, critical modernity. I think Habermas also would call it as a critical modernity. A modernity which is not lost to its own historical reflections. No. It is kind of intergenerational reflective possibility. Modernity is an intergenerational, because from not to back, but to forward also. And both sideways. The contemporary denials of that feeling that we have to really reconstruct and we have to rationally build up, whatever it is, the possibility of dialogue, unless and until we build up the rational possibility, as Richard Bernstein, an American thinker, said, when you begin flirting with irrationalism and nihilism, for Habermas it evokes horrible memories, because he lived in Nazi Germany. So his experience. So there are so many people, those who said, no, you throw away this Nazi experience. How can we do that? We cannot throw away the Brahminical kind of caste system in India. We cannot. Because still there are a lot of people who suffer. We cannot forget about the religious violence which perpetrated on poor people in the form of dogmas. Christianity in the Middle Ages, Hinduism all through its cultures or centuries, Islam, all these religions. So we can't forget that. It is there. For him, it evokes horrible memories. It evokes the Hitler period. Unquote. As Habermas himself acknowledges, there is a strong personal element in his thought. Philosophers live finally from their own institutions, he suggests. And those intuitions are not acquired by reading philosophic text. They are acquired in certain particular individual experiences while growing up, rather negative experiences of violation, violence, indignation, and Krankung. Krankung is a German word. I think it can be roughly translated as insult, outrage, a sensitive mind feeling insulted. And Germans have this problem in a big way, particularly Nazi. First World War and onwards, Weimar Republic, and later the Third Reich. Everywhere they have this problem. And it came up to what you call the Soviet period. Insult. So they cannot forget it. So Habermas's answer makes us again travel through the notions of intersubjective reason, of course, in a critical manner, dialogical discourse ethics, social dialogue. A lot of theory. Habermas is a theoretician. Of course, we can sit another day by explaining the technical terms of Habermas. That involves a lot of time. Discourse ethics, the post-metaphysical stance, and to relocate continuously the critical domain of knowledge, where knowledge is permanently decentered or made human-friendly, liberative, or emancipatory. This will be the single point for which Habermas would be remembered, though he is criticized vehemently by so many people. Minute, very serious criticism. I don't belittle the critique or criticism against Habermas. So the post-metaphysical stance in Habermas has two wings. Of course, I said post-metaphysical or anti-metaphysical, ethical, history, struggle. So it has got two wings. One is the ethical implication, the concept of being able to be oneself. In all these eugenics or applied ethics related, for example, AI related, in all these things, Habermas would say that our ability to be ourselves, that's a very important ethical stance, which affirmatively means autonomy and the right to be post-metaphysically self-organized, post-traditionally, post-metaphysically self-organized. We need to have that freedom. Our knowledge should help us to do that. The other, I think, is an intersubjective framework to associate self with critique. Self and critique. So Habermas later comes with a very interesting book, The Inclusion of the Other. Self and... one second, just 1 second, sorry. बोलिए मनोज, आई एम क्लास में है क्या है? ठीक है, मैं कर दिया ठीक है. So I think Habermas in this connection, the connection between the self and critique, is coming out with a little technical thing. I would call it the ideal critique situations. This ideal critique situation, I think, is deliberative. I think it is dialogical. I think it is democratic, which has a typical kind of rationality. I would call in my humble efforts, in humble ways, my studies are very limited, as intercultural. Intercultural logic is there in this ideal critique situation. So, one, the concept of knowledge and knowledge constitutive interests. The components of this ideal critique situation is knowledge constitutive interest. It becomes all the more unique with the idea of emancipatory critical interest as the core of all epistemic engagements. All epistemic engagements, emancipatory interest. Because knowledge cannot be understood without emancipation or emancipatory interest, as it is the most fundamental survival interest. And if you look at Habermas-Gadamer debate, Professor Koshi and all will be knowing. What Habermas is talking about, tradition, authority, prejudice, all these major thoughts are hermeneutically okay. But as social systems, we have to challenge. We have to go beyond that. Otherwise, we cannot be ourselves. Therefore, empirical knowledge-scientific method, Habermas comes to, or I come to the main point of Habermas. Therefore, empirical knowledge-scientific method, historical hermeneutic method of human science and history need to be informed and juxtaposed with critical reflective knowledge. Knowledge in human interest is coming out with this wonderful theory and interest or information. We'll come to it. Similarly, otherwise, Habermas is telling, otherwise, domination and miscommunication, distorted communication cannot be avoided. Because he's talking about linguistic intersubjectivity. Language is the medium, but language is not a free, innocent medium. It is dominated by power and authority. Money, there are two steering mechanisms, power and money. So they are not innocent. Language is full-time, completely controlled and determined by power, authority, and money. So domination, that is to be challenged. Similarly, Habermas' depth hermeneutics that seeks and grounds the emancipatory dimension, operate even between the technical instrumental and the practical interpretative knowledge patterns. He'll come to it. I just jumped into this. Habermas is dividing knowledge into three major domains. One is empirical, instrumental, the field of science. Second one is interpretative, historical, and language, literature, and all that. And the third one, of course, we need to have a critical domain that he calls the critique of ideology. And the model that he's bringing out is psychoanalysis, going into the depth. I think some students are there. I'll tell you a story about this. I'll take 2 minutes. There's a very interesting movie by Tarkovsky, The Stalker. In that movie, the stalker is telling a story. There is a unique place. One has to travel maybe 2-3 weeks. Very dangerous, very difficult to reach. Lot of dangers await you. But once you reach the middle of that jungle, that forest, there is a sanctum sanctorum. If you go inside the sanctum sanctorum, any wish that you have, that will be fulfilled. And in one place, there were 2 brothers, very poor people. Suddenly, the elder brother found out that his younger brother was having cancer. He was so sad. And finally, he heard a place of this, what we call the place where you will be healed if you reach there, the sanctum sanctorum. The field, that's what he is telling. The sacred field. He travels. It took more than 2-3 weeks to reach there. One by one, he overcame all the problems. He reached there. He managed to get into the sanctum sanctorum, and he prayed for his brother. Took another 15 days to come back. He came back. After 1 month, he came back. He was really surprised. In the place of his hut, there is a big palace. His wife is there with a lot of ornaments. There are a lot of servants around his house. He has become very rich. Then he went and asked his wife, what happened to my brother? He said, brother died 1 month ago. He managed to reach the sanctum sanctorum and prayed for his brother. But my dear students, can you tell me what was the real story? What happened there? He was thinking, to use Freudian terminology, in his conscious mind, that he's praying for his brother. But what actually was given to him, what was granted to him, was the real wish of his subconscious mind. That was to become rich, powerful, all that. Deep in his heart, he is something else. Okay, so our knowledge intentions, our social institutions, our political institutions, our revolutionary intentions, all these are like this only. Conscious mind, they are something else, but deep in the collective, individual as well as collective unconscious of the society, it is something else. So that is to be critiqued. That is to be brought into the field of knowledge. And that exactly is knowledge. That's what he is telling. So language is constitutive of social and historical phenomena, it is also a medium of domination and social power or force. Interaction, communicative, presupposes, emphasizes language as the medium of intersubjective agreement, where the telos of the communication are inherent. Habermas says that telos, intersubjective agreement, communication is there in the telos of language. We know reality through language. It is not, we are knowing, the representational theory of language is flatly denied here, along with many of other thinkers. So Habermas is telling this particular insight will deal with the critical reconciliation of hermeneutics and positivism. This is a theoretical dimension. It was, according to Giddens, is the most important contribution of Habermas. In this area, Habermas is making a very powerful, very important reconciliation of hermeneutics and positivism and coming out with a critical hermeneutics. So, I think we made a brief journey into the major interventions of Habermas and theories against Habermas. Then I will just read out the major books. This one book I have published, these are all my essays about Habermas. Reflections, collected papers, about some 18, 19 papers on Habermas, different aspects of Habermasian theory. And I'll just list out for your interest the major works translated into English. Towards a Rational Society, Knowledge and Human Interest, Theory and Practice, Legitimation Crisis, Communication and the Evolution of Society, Philosophical Political Profiles, Observations on the Spiritual Conditions of Our Age, the Theory of Communicative Action, Volume 1, the Theory of Communicative Action, Volume 2, Autonomy and Solidarity, the Theory of, the Structural Transformation of the Public Sphere, very important work from media studies and political theory, perhaps the first one who did it. On the Logic of Social Sciences, the Philosophical Discourse of Modernity, that is the book where he is challenging the postmodern thinkers, particularly Lyotard and other people. The New Conservatism, Cultural Criticism and the Historians, Moral Consciousness and Communicative Action. For our particular engagement, this is the most important book, Moral Consciousness and Communicative Action. Justification and Application, Post-Metaphysical Thinking, the Past as Future, Between Facts and Norms, the Inclusion of the Other, a Berlin Republic writing on Germany, on the Pragmatics of Communication, on the Pragmatics of Communication, the Post-National Constellation, very important book, the Post-National Constellation, The Liberating Power of Symbols, perhaps the major works of Habermas is coming to an end. After that, Habermas is trying to explain it further. On the Pragmatics of Social Interaction, Religion and Rationality, it's a very important book. It's basically a very important book, for me at least. The Future of Human Nature, is post-metaphysical thinking is turning into a very important guideline there. Truth and Justification, Time of Transitions, The Divided West, and there was a debate with the Pope, the dialectics of secularization on reason and religion. It was a debate with Joseph Ratzinger, who became Benedict the 16th, the Pope later, because both of them are Germans. So one is theologian, the other one is philosopher. Between Naturalism and Religion, those who are interested in religion, is a very important book. Europe, The Faltering Project, The Crisis of European Union, The Lure of Technology. The Lure of Technology is not fully translated. So I think a brief picture of Habermas. Now we come to critical theory, because we were in our title, it is there. No, critical theory. What is critical theory? I told you in a different language. Critical theory is a meta-philosophical endeavor. It is a meta-philosophical endeavor. It is not one of the philosophies. People would say that no, it's another argument. It is post-metaphysical. It is ethical. There's a big meaning in that, because we have a very interesting thinker And Sebastian Karpen is an Indian philosopher and theologian. And he's using this ethical religiosity. It's a very important thing. In India, the Protestant religions are really talking about ethical religiosity. And if you go to the Vedic traditions, the Upanishadic traditions, he say that all these are not ethical. They are, what you say, Gnostic, ritualistic, and metaphysical. So the ethical tradition starts with Buddhism, and it grows through the later Buddhists, of course, little bit of Jainism, Bhakti movement, Tagore, Brahmabandhu Bhadhyaya, Mahatma Gandhi, and he says some more, which I don't want to tell you. So that's a very important dimension. So according to Raymond Morrow, if you're interested in the tradition and important thinkers, critical theory he defines, I quote, is a meta theory of human science, the historical science of society. Historical science. These words are complicated, may be debatable, but we understand it in this way. The historical science of society means it should go beyond historicism. For example, you look at Marxism, the traditional Marxism, there are different phases, starting with barbarian, ending up in communism. That is static. But for critical theories like Habermas, this is a continuous revolution. There is no end to it. Because looking at the past of the society, we keep on moving to new liberative and emancipatory dimensions. The theory of socio-cultural critique as a normative theory. We need to have a normative. That is what I call ethical intervention. So as Douglas Kellner, another important historian, he says, I quote, this project requires a collective supra-disciplinary synthesis of philosophy, the sciences and politics, in which critical social theory is produced by groups of theorists and scientists from various disciplines working together to produce a critical theory of the present age aimed at radical socio-political transformation. Emancipatory intent in that sense. Yes, critical theory is a metaphilosophical endeavor or engagement. So I think hereafter, perhaps a little bit, my own interventions, I think as metaphysical engagement or post-metaphysical engagement, it has three components: interpretative hermeneutics, the concept of interdisciplinarity, and the concept of interculturality. So knowledge will be placed in a big way here. Interdisciplinarity, interculturality, and intercultural hermeneutics. Interpretative hermeneutics and the question of knowledge, the first theme. Of course, we know the debate between empiricism and rationalism. When it comes to science and empiricism with Auguste Comte and with later other thinkers, particularly logical positivism, early Wittgenstein, many other people, later Wittgenstein, say goodbye to that later. Knowledge is actually empirical, empirically verifiable, testable, objective. Anything other than this is not knowledge. Then comes a very important insight from contemporary hermeneutic theories. Dilthey was trying to solve this problem from a human theory's point of view, from human beings. Empiricism was telling that positivism is the most important dimension of religion. Dimension of knowledge. Knowledge is objective. But when it comes to human beings and human society, This is a big fault. And perhaps the hermeneutic theorists, they would come, the contemporary hermeneutics means the early theoretical hermeneutics or philosophical hermeneutics, later thinkers like Heidegger and Gadamer, or the critical hermeneutes like Habermas or reconstructive hermeneutes, all these people, Paul Ricoeur, they all come with an internal division which is hidden by positivism in the form of scientism. Facts and values. Facts means which you can count, quantify, but values cannot be quantified. Values are operating in the domain of meaning, not factuality. The domain of meaning dimension. It is there in phenomenology. These are all kind of intersections with phenomenology, later phenomenologists, post-phenomenologists. It's a very important insight. Habermas would say that in scientism, there is no reflection. There's no self-reflection. There's no possibility of self-reflection. It is closed, convergent. It is theoretically converging. But what we need is a divergent, because the world, life worlds, of course, it is coming from Husserl. Habermas takes it very seriously, but with a pinch of criticism. And life world is very, very, very important in terms of our meaning structure. We live, of course, if you look at existentialism also, we can see a lot of thinkers who contributed to this. Soren Kierkegaard in a big way, his critique of systems. So, knowledge is interpretative, at least when it comes to human life, human interaction, human shared world. Not objective, it is subjective. And Habermas would give the corrective that it is intersubjective. Yes. So the interpretative method is very, very important. But Habermas makes it into a reconstructive, critical hermeneutic method. Critical method. Yes. Habermas's concept of knowledge and knowledge constitutive interest is that with the idea of the emancipatory critical interest, we've already discussed that, is good example. As Habermas says, the knowledge cannot be understood with emancipation or emancipatory interest, as it is a big survival interest. Without survival interest, you cannot think of emancipation. I've already said it. I'm repeating it. Therefore, empirical knowledge, scientific method, historical hermeneutic method of human sciences and history, critical reflective knowledge as generated from the need of emancipation, or are referred to go beyond domination or systematically distorted communication, is essential part of knowledge. So for that, we have to challenge the positivistic, scientistic concept of knowledge. So Habermas we started with critical theory once again, the second part. Critical theory, Habermas takes a very important channelization into linguistic intersubjectivity. Simply interpretative, he is making it into critical reconstructive interpretativity. And he is making us travel through the notions of intersubjective reason, dialogical discourse ethics, the post-metaphysical stance, and to relocate continuously the critical domain of knowledge, where knowledge is permanently descended. I said it in the beginning, I'm repeating it, because we are making a circle coming to it. So this is endorsed through the concept of intersubjectivity. And intersubjectivity, of course, it is attained through three major theories. One is consensus theory of truth. Of course, technically, I don't go into the technicalities. It's a huge area because we know there is correspondence theory of truth, science, coherence theory of truth, pragmatic theory of truth, redundancy theory of truth. Redundancy means Ramsay and all those people. If I start discussing that, we will all run away from here because they are very, very serious engagements. But Habermas is coming out with a wonderful theory, that is consensus theory of truth. He says there is validity claim in truth claims. So you cannot throw away truth. Secondly, truth is warranted assertability, the first point. And I will quote Johnson B. Thompson. He summarizes the chief arguments of the notion of universal pragmatics, the second important dimension. This is the place where Habermas is channelizing the analytical philosophy or the philosophy of language into his own project. So he says the utterance of speech acts raise 4 validity claims that communicatively competent speakers have at their disposal a series of pragmatic universals. So I don't go into the details. This is a complicated thing, but at the same time, it is talking about the validity claims which are there in the telos of language. So through a universal pragmatics, this is the term used by Habermas. Habermas is actually nurturing, modifying his theory of intersubjectivity, which is far, far advanced than egological intersubjectivity of Husserl or radical intersubjectivity of other thinkers like Levinas and other people, and he's nurturing it with a reconstructive science. And the third one is the concept of unity of knowledge. There he's coming out with this schema: aspects of human society, type of study, knowledge interest. Is calling knowledge into 3 domains of interest: labor and sciences. And their domains are, or the knowledge interest is prediction and control. And the type of knowledge is empirical, analytical. Second one is interaction. This word interaction is highly debatable. Anthony Giddens, Mary Hesse, lot of Marxist thinkers, they've challenged this idea of interaction. Habermas is telling Marxian theory of labor. So the problem is Habermas cannot be read without reading many thinkers, particularly Marx, Kant, Kantianism, Hegelianism. Habermas is a neo-Kantian thinker. So with neo-Kantianism is challenging Marx. So the Marxian concept of labor, Marx is reducing everything into labor, and Habermas would say that no, it cannot be reduced into labor alone because there is equi-primordially interaction also. Interaction, communication. That's what he derives. So interaction and disciplines are understanding and meaning. This is taking from philosophical hermeneutics, Gadamer and Heidegger mainly. Understanding and meaning, the meaning dimension. I mentioned about that, the factual dimension and the meaning dimension. The first one was factual dimension, of course, empirical, analytical, and prediction and control. And the second one is understanding and meaning, historical, hermeneutical sciences. Third one is domination of power, systematically distorted, where we need emancipation, critical theory. So he would say that without emancipatory critical interest, which is directly coeval with knowledge, there is no proper placing, contextualizing of knowledge. Now let us come to the question of interdisciplinarity, which is in big debate now. I'll tell you a very interesting story. Professor Koshi, I wrote 2-3 write-ups in Indian Express. So that immediately after that Pahalgam attack, I sent something because there was an interesting story about cosmology. So I thought since they accepted, I thought they will accept this also. So this is about cosmology and cosmogony. So I gave a definition to cosmogony. Cosmology, of course, if you come to this black hole, black energy theories, what they are telling is minimally or more told and imagined by cosmologies different. Science should not be fake science. Many people will come out with fake science now. But of course, cosmology and cosmogony, there should be a meaningful dialogue. I send it confidently. I can send you if you're interested. So after some time, the editor and the opinion teams told me, sir, now Pahalgam attack has come. Lot of such things are coming, and these kind of cosmology and all we can't publish now. So see, our philosophy is all the time an outcast when it comes to popular publication. So this is the problem. Our very intimate kind of life world experience should make a contextual understanding in our knowledge systems. So interdisciplinarity, what we really achieve is deepening of every subject with or in dialogue with other subjects. Of course, multidisciplinary areas are there. Transdisciplinary philosophy, some people call transdisciplinary, but philosophy also should make a kind of interdisciplinary deepening of itself. Now we have applied philosophies and all because of that. And of course, the next one is intercultural. Intercultural means, I would say that religion also, post-traditional religion also should make a deep level knowledge sharing in the form of dialogue with other religions, other cultures. And of course, Professor Koshi has written a wonderful paper in one of my old volumes about yogic tradition. I thankfully remember that paper. So this is the broad canopy when we say that knowledge is emancipatory, or the critical theory is emancipatory intent of knowledge. I have a lot of justificatory conclusion for Habermas, not fully justifying or defending Habermas, but I'm telling there are certain, as I used in one of my books, this is another book which I published, Human Rights, edited volume, I wrote about Habermas, and there I'm using concluding comment, contextual significance as unexhausted discernment. So I think that there is a lot of unexhausted discernment. As I said, when we compare different cultures and their emancipatory interests, which are dormant, or some are dormant, some are explicit or expressed. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Pius. It was as usual, very deep, reflective presentation. Yes, I think Diksha will take the floor now.
And I have a request, Professor Koshi and Diksha. Yeah. I have a program at 5.
Okay.
So
Sure.
we'll wind up.
Yes. 5 we will find out. Yes.
And Professor Koshi,
I know.
few of my issues are there.
I know.
We are happy.
Okay.
But so, I was terribly worried yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday we got a very positive thing.
Good news.
It's a great news. A little more treatment is required, but she responded very well.
Very good.
And Dr. Gangadharan spoke to me.
Okay.
And they may come to Silchar maybe by 10.
No. My sincere gratitude to you at this time of crisis. Also, you could spare time with us.
No, Professor Koshi, a great scholar, is calling. How can I avoid?
After speaking to you, requesting you to present, I felt bad that I should have asked you at this time. But anyway, thanks.
No. This will energize me, bring me back. And 28th to 29th, we have a seminar at the department. Good. It's on Indian philosophy. I think Upanishads.
Okay. So 1 or 2 questions we will take, and then we will wind
up. Yeah. Yes. Someone is telling he has 2 questions. Ask him to come and speak.
Anyone who has a question, I think he's typed the questions in the
dialogue box.
I have two questions to you, sir. Is the notion
Please.
of a rational consensus
Ah.
in communicative action inherently utopian? Can true consensus ever be achieved in diverse societies? And the second is relevance of the critical philosophy of Habermas in the Indian context.
Yes. The first one I have already answered, because Mendelssohn, Anthony Giddens, Philip Pettit, and many of these postmodern thinkers, they said rational consensus, rationality, rational consensus. But the importance of Habermas, I've tried to explain it. The importance of Habermas is coming out with counterfactual claims or counterfactual ideals. Rational consensus is a very important counterfactual ideal. We need it. What is the use of our constitution? My dear friend, I don't remember your name. Eh? What is the use of our constitution? What is the purpose of this constitution? Do you think constitution is really followed? Constitutional morality. We go away from it all the time. But constitution is a very important document. Habermas also. Habermas asked me once. I had only 2 dialogues with Habermas. Once he asked, do you have a constitution? I said, yes, of course we have wonderful constitution. Ambedkar and other people. There are so many other people. So this rational consensus is a constitutional mode of expressing counterfactual ideal. The principle is shared world. Whether we can share the world or not is a factual misnomer or a problem. But we need to have a counterfactual ideal. What is the point of talking about empathy? Compassion, love, mercy. If you go into the world, you won't see all this. But all these are very important counterfacts or ideals in the repository of human life. First point, we can discuss it with a lot of examples and other things. This is the importance of this continuing dialogue. That's why I told the cosmology and cosmogony. We have to make dialogue. You cannot foreclose. Cosmology, there is a very interesting cosmologist, Lawrence. He says religion, all these are waste. I don't think so. Religion, of course, there are 2 dimensions. One is the status quo. The other one is the liberation seeking, all the dialogical dimension, open dimension, transparent dimension. So I think here I will answer your second question. Indian context. In Indian context, of course, Habermas is very, very relevant and important. You have to translate Habermas into the Indian context. That's what I did. If you read my, this human rights volume, there are so many important people here. I'll read out. They've all contributed. J. Drydock, Madhu, our Madhu. Then CBK George, Bombay IIT, Krishnan Unni, Sudhir Chellarajan, IIT Madras, George Tadathil, CS Venkateshwaran, VT Sebastian, Prasanjit Vishwas. So, but my thing is about Habermas. This is what I'm telling. We have to make dialogue with the truth claims. And Habermas is telling religion should come out and make a kind of dialogue with a modern system of knowledge. So the dialogue is very important. We cannot foreclose. We cannot undo. And I think there's a very interesting paper by, I think, Verma. I have that paper with me, Gandhi, comparing Gandhi and Habermas. I wanted to write something like that. Before that, she published. So I'm waiting for my Gandhi volume to add a little more to my ideas. So when it comes to, you look at the whole traditions of India, the tradition of dialogue in India. Anvishiki, and the Vedantic tradition, which is slightly not Anvishiki. So these two these two different traditions, or what do you say, the Veda Pramanya schools, which are having orthodox and heterodox schools with Veda Pramanya, Shaddarshanas, and the heterodox, Buddhism, Jainism, Charvakas, there should be a dialogue. So this rational consensus at that level, modified critical ideal, counterfactual ideal, is very, very important, and Habermas can be very well used in the Indian context, particularly in reassessing, reformulating, rethinking, critically reflecting on the Constitution of India, the formation of the Constitution of India. I think I've minimally answered you. What was the name? I forget your name, please. The one who asked the question? Govinda Bhattacharya. Oh, sir, actually, recently I have submitted my PhD thesis on the philosophy of Habermas. Very good, great, wonderful. And we are the birds of the same flock. I completed in 2002 or 3. So now you are coming out. Wonderful. Please speak to Professor Koshi, my good friend, and contact me. Please contact me. Okay? Contact me.
Professor Pius, there is one question, I think, from Professor Ranjit Ghosh. I could see.
Please, sir.
Professor Ghosh, please go ahead. Yeah.
It was an excellent deliberation, no doubt. But I have one question regarding the difference between Habermas and Marcuse, because both of them are cultural critique of this bourgeois society. But the thing is, when Marcuse advocating the one-dimensional man.
Yes.
So, don't you think that Habermas is supporting a multi-dimensional man, because his emancipatory action that you are proposing, it will definitely require the multi-dimensionality, as you are talking about the is intersubjectivity. So this is one thing, and the other thing is about the rationalization from unfreedom to freedom. These two things, which Habermas is. Would you please enlighten us about this? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Professor. Thank you. Wonderful question. I am no one to enlighten you, but still, I'll just share my mind. That's all. This one-dimensional man by Herbert Marcuse. I think Habermas, if he has considered anyone as his mentor, that was Herbert Marcuse. So Horkheimer was there, Leo Lowenthal was there, Erich Fromm was there, but he thought Marcuse was Marcuse involvement in the concept of freedom and the history of philosophy was wonderful. All other people were good, but at the same time, they were not pure philosophers. Marcuse was a pure philosopher and trained very well in phenomenology and all that. The whole of his one-dimensional man was a continuing critique of the dialectic of enlightenment, that major text. So Habermas would say that this one-dimensional man is sort of, or that tradition which couldn't actually come to a proper intersubjective dialogical self-understanding, reflective understanding of society and emancipation. So I would think that Habermas was trying to extend the argument of Herbert Marcuse. Particularly Habermas, you said once, he is not into art, not into literature, and Marcuse was extremely good. And my God, what the other one? Dialectic of Enlightenment, Horkheimer, and the other thinker. He was extremely good in art. No, they were all who can play, symphonies, who worked on cultural industry and all that. That great man who wrought on cultural industry. Can anybody remember his name? I have a problem.
Are you referring to Adorno?
Adorno, yeah, Theodore Adorno. Yes. So the Theodore Adorno and Herbert Marcuse, their literary kind of, what do you say, romantic delimitations, Habermas is further theorizing into intersubjective dimension. That's what I think. They belong to the same tradition. And second question, sir, you please. Please
Sir,
unmute.
you need to unmute. Sir, you need to unmute.
Yeah, the second one is from rationalization from unfreedom to freedom.
Yes.
This is what he is proposing.
Exactly, yes.
So, and that will be taken as emancipatory. That is what.
Exactly.
That is what.
So that old concept of liberation, revolutionary, there are so many tinges of meaning in liberation. One is the religious and idealistic kind of meaning. The other one is revolutionary, Marxian kind of meaning.
Because you see, when rationalization is there, the older society is changing into modern society. That is
exactly.
Life world. The life world of the previous society is changed in the life world of the present society.
Exactly. So that's what Habermas is calling the emancipatory process.
Yeah.
It is through constitution, positive law, through democratization. You have to rationalize the society capable of intersubjective self-reflectivity. That's what he was telling. So he was advocating very seriously between facts and norms about human rights and the domains of constitutional democracy, constitutional patriotism. All these are wonderful words he contributed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right.
I think if there are any more questions, you may reach out to Dr. Thomas via email. His email ID is in the chat box. I would now request Elizabeth to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
Yeah, someone is asking about Purusharthas. Purusharthas is, as an ideal, is very interesting. But the problem is, as many people pointed out, the debate is going on in a big way. Purusharthas are all limited to a kind of unfree, Brahminical understanding. Of course, you can come out of that. It's a controversial area. But there are thinkers who say that, of course, Gandhi, Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Aurobindo, Tagore, Brahmabandhu Bhattacharya, all these great thinkers up to Ambedkar, they all challenged this one-sidedness or one-dimensionality of Purusharthas. I don't want to use controversial words, that's what I'm telling. So they all interculturally tried to modify it. This intercultural modification of Purusharthas are very, very important.
Maybe just to add, I mean, I'm sure you might have seen the paper by Professor Sundararajan, no?
Yes.
Purusharthas in the light of critical theory. So,
yes. No, I didn't see. I haven't seen it. Please send it to me.
Okay.
Please send it to me, sir.
No, it was published in IPQ long back. Anyway, I will send it.
Long time back. Oh, okay. Yes. So this intercultural dialogue is very, very important because as contemporary critical theorists would say that there is no culture in itself. All cultures are intercultural. At some point of time, we have mingled and mixed with so many other things. Our food habits, our dress, our language, everything. And we have to continuously look at how we are growing in dialogue with other cultures. So that kind of a modification is very important. Purushartha is a very important contribution of Indian culture or certain aspects of Indian culture to the world. but they are to be deprovincialized through dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Diksha. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the School of Sanskrit, Philosophy and Indic Studies, I would like to first and foremost thank Professor Pius V. Thomas for his thought provoking and deeply reflective talk. We are truly grateful for the time and intellectual energy you shared with us, sir. A special thanks to Professor Koshi Tharakan, Dean of our school, for his continued encouragement and presence, and to all our faculty members. To all research scholars at Goa University, thank you for your enthusiastic involvement. We are also delighted by the presence of faculty, students, and participants from outside Goa University. Last but not the least, a warm thank you to Diksha for designing the poster and to those who contributed towards publicizing the lecture. Thank you once again. We look forward to more such enriching exchanges in future. Thank
Also,
you.
special thanks
Over
to my
you.
colleagues from other disciplines. We have Professor Yugang Naik here. He is a professor in international relations at Goa University. I think because of paucity of time, he just restrained himself from posing questions. Some of his students are also there. There are also some of the research scholars from sociology. And thank you all for attending, and big thanks.
And Professor Koshi,
Professor,
before I say big thanks to you, big thanks to you for this wonderful opportunity to be with all of you. And Professor Ranjit Ghosh and other faculty members, research scholars, Diksha and others. I have a request. Please take a photograph and send it to me, because
sure.
these
Please.
are all for records.
So please turn on your, what you call camera. What is it? Please, if possible.
Yes. Take a
just switch
photo.
off.
I think Diksha or someone can take a photograph.
I
We are
request
sitting for
everybody
this
to
program,
turn.
and please take a photograph so that I can also cherish this memory.
Yes. All those who could, please switch on your camera and then click.
Yes. I don't do. You can send it to me. My WhatsApp.
Diksha, you are clicking, no? Snapshot.
Who is Diksha is taking?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes. Thank you so much once again for
Thank
this
you.
wonderful
Thank you.
opportunity. I thank Professor Koshi Tharakan and all of you, the organizers, research scholars, faculty members, students. I hope I didn't disappoint you and communicate with you, because this online talks, personally speaking, I don't like. Because you cannot see people face to face. This is against Habermas. There's no dialogue in this. Of course, we are doing it. We have no other way. This is limited by certain protocols. That's why I thought I will do a PowerPoint presentation. Then I thought PowerPoint presentation means I cannot see anybody.
Yeah.
I can't see even myself. How funny I am. I can't see. So I thought I'll speak. Particularly philosophy, we have to speak.
It was quite, interesting lecture. We learned a lot, and I'm sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Right. All the
Thank
best.
you, everyone. We'll meet next month with another monthly online talk. Thank you
Okay.
so much for joining.
Thank you then. Bye.